Here's a slightly different video, something a little bit, well, off the cuff, of course, but it kind of plays into everything I've been talking about this week. I want to talk about advertising. You see, at the heart of all the social media and the streaming services and everything else, including linear television, is advertising. And without that money, things don't happen. I think I mentioned this in yesterday's video, but we're about to have a midterm election cycle, and that usually means big bucks. And of course, we'll talk about that in just a moment. But right now, we're seeing many of these streaming services, including Netflix, come to the realization that they shied away from a business that could have been making them a lot of money all along. And again, that's advertising. But this is bigger, this is broader, and we should talk about it because the advertisers are worried. And that all feeds into what Elon Musk is doing. So we've got a lot to unpack. Here we go. So Netflix has been under an assault of sorts. Well, at least from the other streaming services, the regular network television folks, and other types of associated industries like social media. You see, they are all kind of making fun of Netflix for just finally coming around to the idea that advertising is a good thing. What I find funny is a lot of these streaming services have been thumbing their nose at the idea of advertising themselves up until very recently. Also, you see, the realization that you cannot produce a whole lot of content that isn't widely consumed and still make money, well, I think that's been revealed for what it is, the shell game, and that means a lot of investment folks have been, kind of turning the thumb screws on some of these streaming services like Disney and others. So we turn back to advertising. So for Netflix, apparently, knives are out for their ad plans. That's right, in all of the TV rivals upfronts that recently happened, where they announced their slate of new programs or new shows that are coming out, or this is the new Disney minus series or whatever, right? Paramount Plus Global garbage. Anyway, when that all happens, those are called upfronts, and they tell you what they're going to do, but they all took time out to point finger at Netflix and talk about advertising and kind of mock how just inexperienced Netflix is in this field. And, well, they are. It's very much nascent. It's very new. Their presentation's very vague on how they're going to go about it. So that's something I guess you could make fun of. But here's the problem. None of these other entities are doing it very well. In fact, going back to 2020, you can see that there's a lot of concern about whether or not you're wasting ad dollars. In fact, 10 facts about ad waste that keep advertisers up at night. Even back in 2020, mind you, there were spending over $380 billion on digital ads. And that is an estimate. Could have been much more. And I guarantee you we're spending even more now. So that concern weighs heavily on the minds of people who are trying to get their products in front of consumers so that maybe they'll buy them. So these facts, like ads going unseen, well, that's a problem. Because more than 56% of display ads back in 2020, they essentially were never seen. Those impressions were never realized, even though the advertisers were paying to reach those given customers. Obviously, low click-through rates are a concern. I'm concerned about that here on YouTube, but you want as many clicks as you can possibly get per 1,000 impressions, and based on Smart Insights, you were only getting about 0.17% click-through. That is terrible. And consumers are starting to ignore ads that just aren't germane to them. Anything that's not somewhat targeted, they just don't pay any attention to. And of course, advertisers, this is the fourth fact, are struggling with return on investment. So you have between 40 and 60% of digital marketing budgets being spent ineffectively. And again, these are numbers from 2022. They're probably more egregious now, especially since marketers are seeing waste with these things as an obstacle, which is fact number 5. Number 6 is also of concern because ad blockers grew in popularity. I even use one. So right now there's over 236 million of those on desktops and over 380 million ad blockers on mobile phones. So they're not getting to those people either. It's a lot of people blocking your stuff. Of course, blocked ads are hurting the publisher like Google and, all the ones that we work with on social media, and advertisers are missing opportunities left and right. They really believe that they're missing out on at least 25% more business, and I can't argue with that. But here's the thing that's most concerning, especially if you're Elon Musk. Bots are the cons of the digital ad world, and let me tell you, if you have 20% bots on Twitter, you have a problem. If you have 50% bots on Twitter, you have a problem. And we're not even going to dive into all the bots on Google and other places like that. So according to research that was commissioned by the Association of National Advertisers, $7.2 billion globally will be lost to bot fraud, and those numbers are from 2022. It's even worse now. So they're looking for intelligent advertising solutions, and a lot of that direct to consumer stuff is going to come from set-top boxes and connected televisions and things like that, but they will still suffer from a lot of these same issues. So it's not going to stop the train, but at least these people are aware of how their money's being wasted, and I have to tell you, I agree with them 100%, but it doesn't stop the train because they keep advertising, especially when you come into an election cycle. And that's the primary point that we are going to talk about today. We are going to see the massive expansion once again of the amount of money that's spent in a midterm election cycle. In fact, the headline says it all. Midterm moolah, TV stations, cash in on primary season. What I find interesting is that linear television is still the largest place where political advertising is done. And to me, based on all of the stuff that they're trying to peddle to me all the time about digital streaming and all these other things, that linear is still king. And that's because people still consume linear products digitally through streaming services. So it's all one and the same. But regardless, we're looking at $8.8 billion in ad spend alone just on the midterms. There's something that's brilliant that's said during the course of this article. You're seeing it from Sinclair Broadcast Group CEO Chris Ripley, who says, quote unquote, "Money raised equals money spent. Money never gets returned." It's a true statement. And every single one of these PACs, super PACs, dark money ads, all this stuff, it gets spent. It comes in, it gets spent, and boy, do the advertising entities appreciate it, but at the same time, so do these linear networks and the streaming services alike. And you're also going to see an increase in total spend digitally on digital ads on social platforms, which we'll get to in a second. But if you look at what Fox Corp saw in the previous midterm cycle, they saw $180 million spent. $180 million spent. Just Fox Corp. They're looking for even more than that this time. They think they're going to blow it out of the water. Could be 250 million. Could be more. You've already seen ridiculous ad spend in the gubernatorial races in New York. You've seen giant sums of cash spent in Georgia. You have more primaries coming up where more of this money is getting spent, and we haven't even got to the proper election cycle yet. We're just at the beginning. Gray is one of the largest, the second largest TV and media companies right now here in the United States. They own a ton of stations. They broadcast in 113 markets, and they've reported revenue growth in the first quarter that has been pretty good, 26 million in 3 months, and that ended just a few weeks ago on March 31st. But that's up 9 million from 2021, and that was an off year as far as the elections for the general. So their total revenues of 827 million were strong to begin with, and now we're heading into a election cycle with the midterms. They're gonna make more money. Nexstar Media Group, incredibly excited about the upcoming midterms as well, with their 200 broadcast stations in the United States, and their political advertising revenue in the most recent quarter was $23.7 million. So they are looking at very strong early midterm election spending. Money drives politics. Money drives information. Money may even drive misinformation. But let me tell you, these political ads just keep coming. You have what looks like 2022 will be an overall boon for linear television, digital video, and even local cable TV. $8.8 billion. And you can see from this chart, it's gone dramatically upward. 2014, you looked at what appears to be 1.7 billion total dollars. 2016, 2.5 billion. 2018, 3.9 billion. You look at 2020 being a record year, even better than the year we're about to have, at $9.5 billion. You will see 8.8 billion being the most substantial midterm that we've ever had. And again, linear local broadcast television is the lion's share at $4.5 billion of that. But look, that's not the only place that the money's going. You're seeing even more money dumped into social media advertising, and that's where we're going to wrap up. Facebook and Instagram have been, well, Meta platforms, probably the best way to describe those two entities, has been under fire for a while because of Zuckerberg's spending in the previous election, because of how ads are used and utilized to target individual groups and persons. And Meta's going to actually just give it to you. Jeff King recently wrote that by making advertiser targeting criteria available for analysis and reporting on ad runs about social issues, elections, and politics, we hope to help people better understand the practices used to reach potential voters on our technologies. In other words, we are going to try to be somewhat transparent. You will be able to consume this information as it will be showcased in the Facebook ad library, a public database that already shows how much companies, politicians, or campaigns spend on each ad that they run across Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp. Currently, anyone can see how much a page has spent running an ad, and a breakdown of the ages, gender, and states or counties an ad is shown in. And the information will be available across 242 counties when a social issue, political, or election ad is run. That's substantial and probably a good thing. You're going to start to see even more information roll out at opensecrets.org, and obviously Facebook opening up their books. I would encourage Google to do the same thing. I would like to know where these monies are coming from and how they're going about targeting people. But I guess ultimately all I want to say is this: there's no end to the advertising dollar, it seems, despite all of the concerns we talked about earlier in the video. And of course, elections are where a giant sum of cash comes to be spent every 2 years. What do you think? That's a good question. What do you think? Are you ever swayed by any of these ads, no matter if they be political or not? Do they drive any of your spending habits? It seems like just 0.17% of ads actually result in somebody moving forward with some decision making around a product. I wonder if that's the same for a political candidate. I wonder if it ever actually moves the needle. That's a good question. You have massive platforms like Meta, which collected about $86 billion in total revenue in 2020. And that was the last major election year. And you can imagine several billion of those dollars came from political ads. I imagine Twitter does pretty bang up job too when it comes to collecting election ad spend revenue. But I don't know. Do you think that that's actually influential when it comes to these elections? Or do you think there's more going on when it comes to the way elections are decided in this country? Do you think $8.8 billion is a reasonable sum of advertising money to be spent on political races just for advertising purposes in the United States every 4 years, every 2 years? And do you think that any of these candidates get any value for their money? Anyway, that's up to you. Please use the description section down below to give me your comments. Make the comments in that comment area, and hopefully we can talk about this. I have to say, advertising drives everything now, and hopefully we still continue to recognize that. Whether or not it's good or bad, or is influential in any way, that's up to us, I guess, individually to decide. Be sure to support other independent creators here on the platform. I do appreciate all of the other people that I watch on a regular basis, and I always try to give them a like, try to throw out a comment, and words of encouragement are always good. And of course, I'll share out just something that's absolutely stupendous, like I did with the very first video from our friend Theme Park Casual. Beyond that, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, bye.
Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.